Backstroke starts present a significant challenge for most swimmers. But if we can lock in on the most important and the key skills for effective backstroke starts, we can simplify the process and start to develop strategies to help swimmers learn these key skills. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. And in this video, we're going to break down the key skills of effective backstroke starts so that you can develop strategies to help your swimmers learn these skills as quickly and as easily as possible. There are three key elements of the backstroke start that are really important. First, swimmers need to project themselves over the water. Second, they need to actually perform a back dive and enter the water cleanly. And three, they need to control their depth upon entry. So a lot of swimmers really struggle to project out. A lot of swimmers really struggle to actually dive. They just kind of fall back into the water. And third, a lot of swimmers are either too shallow or too deep as a result of the path they take when they execute their dive. If we can help swimmers clean up those skills, we're going to help them swim a lot faster over the first 15 meters in their backstroke races. So let's check out what swimmers need to do in order to execute great backstroke starts so that you can start to develop strategies to help swimmers improve their starts. So the first key aspect of a great start is the ability to project the body out. Swimmers have to be able to get out over the surface of the water. The more they can do so, the less resistance they're going to create. If they drag through the water or they enter the water close to the wall, that means they're going to have to swim underwater more, which is going to be more resistance than traveling over the water. So if we watch here, you can see at this point, swimmers have thrown their body back, but now you get the real strong push of the body, and that's what's really going to project them out. So they have to have the strength to push into the wall and then to some extent push down into the wall, and that's going to get them out over the surface of the water. If swimmers don't push, they don't really exaggerate that drive, they're just going to kind of fall back into the water, and that's going to create a lot less speed than if they really drive into the wall and really jump. Now, obviously, there's a strength component to this. If the swimmers lack the ability to create a lot of force quickly, they're not going to be able to project particularly well, and they may not be able to project well at all. However, they still need to try to push as much as they can, and in conjunction with land work, they can develop the strength over time to eventually be able to really project themselves well and really execute a great push off of the wall. Here's another example from a different angle. You can see that right now they're relatively crunched up and they're going to really extend, and right here you can watch how they really drive through the wall, and right there that's how they really push out and project themselves over the water. So again, swimmers have to push into the wall really hard. They're going to have to push down a little bit in order to get the hips up, and they're trying to get themselves up and out and over the water. And the better they can do that, the more effectively they can do that, the stronger they can push, the easier it's going to be to execute an effective dive, which is going to be really important for entering cleanly and reducing resistance. And that brings us to the next key skill, which is that swimmers actually have to dive into the water backwards. And so you can see here, you really get the impression and the understanding that it's a backstroke dive. They've literally dived into the water going backwards. And that's really important because a lot of swimmers are simply pushing and throwing the arms backwards, and they're not actually trying to dive into the water. And you can see the swimmers are going to throw their head back, they're going to throw their body back, they're going to arch their back, and that's going to allow them to enter the water, actually dive into the water and enter the water cleanly. You can see here, both swimmers are able to enter through one hole, and that's going to greatly reduce the amount of resistance that they create, and it's going to allow them to swim a lot faster. And so the dive aspect is grossly underrated. A lot of times swimmers are just going to push and they're just going to see what happens, where in reality they actually have to dive. And so one of my favorite strategies for helping swimmers learn to do this, and it doesn't require a lot of strength, is just having them literally practice back dives from the side of the pool. They start to understand how to manipulate their body, how to go backwards, and how to dive backwards, because a lot of swimmers actually have fear about going backwards into the water. They're not sure where their body is, they're not sure where their head is, and that can really limit their ability to actually dive into the water. And that's a key aspect of a great backstroke start. So literally practicing back dives independent of a racing start can be really effective for helping swimmers learn how to manage their position in the air and do so going into the water backwards. Another key skill is entering the water and finding an appropriate depth and diving in a way that allows them to be at the appropriate depth. So if we watch here, swimmers are going to enter and they're going to find a pretty horizontal position pretty early. So if we watch these swimmers here, they enter going down, but they quickly reverse that and they quickly level out, and they're at an appropriate depth, which allows them to do their dolphin kicks, allows them to make their way to the surface without having to take more time or travel more distance. So a big part of executing a great start is managing their trajectory into the water, finding the appropriate depth so that they can maintain as much speed and create as little resistance as possible, which is going to allow them to maintain that speed. So again, when swimmers dive into the water, they need to find a way to manage their position, and a lot of that can be set up by the trajectory they have over the water, but also they can use their hands as rudders, and if they need to steer that hand up, that can help them change their trajectory. So if we watch this swimmer in the first lane, we can see that he's entering the water, his hands are pointed down towards the pool. Right there, he's changed the direction of his hands, and that immediately starts to level him out and prevents him from continuing to sink deeper and deeper. So one, swimmers need to enter the water cleanly and then manage their trajectory by using the hand kind of as a rudder to change their depth and get them aligned in the water and moving towards the surface of the water without going too deep. So if we watch these swimmers here, same idea. They're going to manage their position. They're going to find a way to enter the water cleanly, and they're going to find a way to transition to the surface well without going too deep. And that's going to allow them to maintain as much speed as possible without losing any speed. And that's going to set them up for the rest of the first lap. So managing the depth of the dive is really important, and that's going to allow swimmers to carry a lot more speed into their first 15 meters. Now, if we watch the swimmer right above me, you can see that the hands are pointed down, and right there, he adjusts the hands, he levels them out, and that's going to change his trajectory. And it allows him to smooth out the transition, so suddenly he's a lot more horizontal, whereas he first entered the water as an angle. Now he's in a position to transition to the surface a lot more effectively. So if we watch it one more time, right there, he starts to adjust his position. You can see him level out, and that's going to help him transition into a really great underwater, into a really great breakout. So while backstroke starts aren't easy to execute, the big picture concepts are ultimately really simple. Swimmers need to project themselves over the water. They need to be able to execute a back dive, and that can often be best learned from the side of the pool. So swimmers get comfortable with that basic movement, with that strategy. And then swimmers need to manage their position once they get into the water so that they level out. They don't go too deep, they don't go too shallow, so that they can smoothly transition to the surface where they can then start swimming backstroke. So if you can help your swimmers learn to project, if you can help them learn how to dive into the water effectively, and you can help them transition to the surface more effectively, you're going to have much more effective backstroke starts. They're going to be a lot faster over those first 15 meters. There are different ways for swimmers to set up on the blocks and make that happen, but ultimately they need to project, they need to dive, and they need to transition. And if they can do all those things well, they're going to have a great first 15 meters. If you want to learn more about how to swim effective backstroke once they're on the surface, check out the video right above me.